I'm unhappy. Why? Because I feel like something's missing. Why? Because I'm performing rather than being myself. Why? Because I need to control the image people have of me. Why? Because then I can avoid having to set boundaries. Why? Because I hate setting boundaries. Why? Because I don't believe I deserve them. Because I don't love myself. Why? Because I'm a fraud. And yet, even in that feeling, there's something else happening. A smaller, quieter voice. One I hear every day nudging me, shaping who I am, what I do, what I say, who I am as a person, what I believe about myself. It starts small, almost invisible, until one day it's quietly guiding our choices, our habits, and the way we show up in the world, often without us even noticing. I want you to travel back in time with me, back to September 2019, right here at St. Joseph's School, in a 2SE classroom. You open the door, enter the room full of students, voices overlapping, papers flying around, typical classroom environment for in-between periods, except for one student. She's sitting at her desk, hands on her head, staring into the void. Why? Let me tell you why. I had just received my very first ever philosophy assignment. We were supposed to answer a question, but from my reaction, one would think it was a 7-page paper or a 20-question essay, but no. It was something much, much worse. We were asked to answer the question, who am I? No word limit, no studying needed, just one simple question. Sounds like a dream assignment. Well, that dream assignment kept me up 3 nights in a row, and I wish I was joking. I did not know what to write. My name, my ethnicity, my age, my nationality, none of these made sense as an answer. Day by day, hour by hour, the deadline came nearer, and my panic grew louder and louder and louder until the deadline arrived. And I did what I do best. I talked my way out of it. I lied to my teacher. But more importantly, I lied to myself and never really answered the question. Scandalous, right? No, not really. You see, the best salesman in the world is your brain at 6 a.m. when the alarm clock rings. Think about it. I have time. 2 more minutes. I'll wake up when I wake up. It's fine. And then you end up late just because you were resting your eyes. All because we decided that lying to ourselves was easier than facing the uncomfortable reality that we need to wake up. And that's not just for when the alarm rings. This is what we do in our daily lives. Let's go back to philosophy class for a moment, where we look at concepts like perception and ego. Officially defined, perception is the process by which individuals organize, interpret, and make sense of sensory information in order to understand their environment. Basically, it's how your brain turns what it receives into meaning. And that matters when we're talking about lying to ourselves. Because before we lie with words, we lie with interpretation. And one of the biggest factors shaping that interpretation is your ego. Your ego is your conscious sense of self, your self-identity, your self-image, basically who you believe you are. And that ego acts as a filter for the information your brain receives. And sometimes that filter protects us. But most times and very often, it protects the story we tell ourselves. So I want to try something with you. Everyone, please look around the room and pick one object. Focus on it. Try to remember it as much as possible, its shape, its color. Okay. Now, everyone, please, I want you to close your eyes. Inhale, exhale. And without opening your eyes, try to remember the color of the exit lights. You can open your eyes now. Most of us won't be able to answer that. Not because your eyes didn't see it, but because your brain decided it was not important. You see, our brain deletes most of the information it receives when it decides that that information is not relevant. Now imagine that instead of filtering objects like we just did, your brain is filtering the truth, your reality. And the filter it uses is your ego. In other words, who you think you are and what you believe about yourself. Anything that challenges the narrative you have written for yourself becomes uncomfortable, even if it's the truth, especially if it's the truth. Not because you are dishonest, but because your brain is very good at protecting you from what makes you uncomfortable. And this happens to us every single day. Even right now, if one of you is thinking, no, not me, I don't do that, you are probably doing that at this very moment. Some pills are just hard to swallow, especially ones that threaten our self-image and what we believe about ourselves. Example, take a goal a lot of people might share that only if you achieve. Getting amazing grades, getting in fit shape, receiving a high-paying job, fixing your addiction, anything. How many times do we hear people say, I tried everything, nothing works? Did you? Did you really try everything? Because everything is a big word. It is virtually impossible to fail when you try everything. It is much more possible, however, to fail when you lie to yourself about trying everything because you're afraid to see what would happen if you really put your mind to it. 3 years ago, I took an internship interview. It changed my life in the most unexpected way possible. I was sitting on a creaking chair at university. I opened my laptop. I was ready for my meeting. I can still remember the silence, the sound of the clock ticking, tick, tock, tick, tock. It was freaking me out. My hands were cold but somehow sweaty. I blew off an exam the day before to prepare for this. I wanted this internship so badly. I was sitting on my chair, waiting for the meeting to start when ding, I hear the notification, team plays when you start a meeting. My stomach drops. It's on. We skip through pleasantries and a few questions, and then comes the world's most predicted interview question. What are your weaknesses? You see, I had prepared for this question. The trick was to mention a real weakness that is irrelevant to the job description. I was applying for marketing, so I said, I'm bad at finance. I hate it, it hates me, I don't do finance. The recruiter looks at me, slowly smiles. Did I say something wrong? Is he laughing at me? After a short pause that seemed to me like forever, he asked me, are you really bad at finance? Or is that just what you tell yourself? Excuse me? Is that an interview or a therapy session? At first I was annoyed. But after the first 5 seconds of anger faded, came a deep realization of something I did not want to admit was true. He was right, and that is exactly what I said. I smiled and I said thank you. I did not end up getting that internship. But what I got that day was something much, much more valuable. An idea, or rather a question, was planted in my head. What are the things I tell myself that are not necessarily the full truth? And we all do this, because saying I'm bad at finance is easier than actually putting the effort to study and to try. Saying I just have bad luck with relationships is easier than admitting to yourself you have trouble setting boundaries. Saying I can't find a job because no one is recruiting, something I've said myself many times, is easier than actually doing the hard research into applying correctly. Possibilities sound great on paper, but in reality, they're terrifying. Limits, on the other hand, they're safe, they're comfortable. My favorite quote comes from an Oscar Wilde book. To define is to limit. And that is precisely what I did by defining myself as bad at finance. I limited my potential. Defining ourselves allows us to limit ourselves, our actions, thoughts, options, and possibilities to only what fits that definition and only that definition. It's a safe but dangerous space. Our brains are wired for survival, not for happiness. We will always choose the safe but limiting lie rather than the sea of possibilities that come with the truth. Remember the exercise we did? You thought you were choosing what to focus on, but in reality, your brain was also choosing what to ignore. And that's how most of us live our lives. Not just seeing everything, only seeing what fits into who we think we are. How many goals go unachieved? Opportunities missed? Happiness lost? Right now, please everyone, think of one goal you've had for a long time but never achieved. Take a few seconds. Okay. Now, what's the BS story you tell yourself as to why you still haven't achieved it? And the crazy thing is, learning to be honest with yourself isn't just about achieving goals and being successful. It's also important to live a happy and fulfilled life. Let me tell you one last story. Last year, I had everything figured out. Top grades, amazing friends, great social life, lots of achievement, and most importantly, not to brag, Instagram highlights that looked like they came out of a movie. Everything one could possibly ask for. Achievement after achievement, celebration after celebration. I did everything right. I ticked all of the boxes. Till one night, I was lying in bed at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, and it hit me. My house of cards came tumbling down. That's when I realized I had nothing. Life was perfect, and I was miserable. On paper, I was on cloud 9. In reality, I had hit rock bottom. I kept feeling something was missing. I had so many friends. I acted like we're the best people in the world. But in reality, I knew I couldn't trust them. I had straight A's, amazing grades. But in a major, I knew deep down I wanted to change. I had the perfect CV for someone going into consulting. But I've always felt entrepreneurship was my calling, and I never did anything about it. I had the trendiest designer bags and outfits, but no unique style, and just felt like a copy of everyone else. My style, my career, my degree, my friends, none of it was really mine. I was living a life I had borrowed. And on that night, I made a choice. Not a big, dramatic choice to change my life, no. Just to stop lying to myself. I stopped asking what looks right, and I started asking what feels true. Because the hardest lies to confront, they're not the one you tell other people, like I told my philosophy teacher, no. They're the ones you whisper to yourself. I'm fine, this is just who I am, this is enough. So I started asking the uncomfortable questions, just like I did today. And honesty has consequences. Some friendships, gone. Some versions of myself, gone. Some plans completely changed. But something else happened. For the first time in a very long time, since that philosophy assignment, and since that internship interview, and since I had that realization, I felt inspired. Because honesty with yourself is not dramatic, it's not loud, it's quiet. It's waking up without negotiating with your alarm clock. It's making decisions, taking action without rehearsing explanations in your head. It's realizing that happiness does not come from living a perfect life, but from experiencing a real one. Remember that philosophy assignment? The one I never submitted? If I had to answer today, I think I finally could. I'm a liar who is learning every day to tell yourself the truth. And maybe today, the question isn't, who am I? Maybe it's, who am I when I'm telling myself the truth? Because the biggest lies are not spoken out loud. They're rehearsed silently. So tell yourself the truth, even when the truth ruins the image you worked so hard to build. Tell yourself the truth, even when it means you chose comfort over courage. Tell yourself the truth, especially when the lie sounds reasonable. Because the most dangerous, destructive lies, they don't sound like lies. They sound like explanations. So tonight, when you look in the mirror, and tomorrow morning, when that alarm clock rings, please tell yourself the truth. Thank you.